There we go.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming to our council work session. As you may know, the council work session is used by the council to discuss the agenda item. Comments and questions, and also comments and questions from the council. Let's start the meeting with the adoption of the agenda. I'll need a motion to adopt the agenda as written. Thank you, Bill. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The agenda is adopted. All right. As per our city charter, our city manager with council input designed our proposed 2024 budget, where expenditures are in line with revenues. It was made available through a message through our email system for citizens could come to City Hall and review the budget, the proposed budget, and it also was posted on our website. Council members, I know you've reviewed the work session package, which included the proposed budget and also Mr. Streetman's PowerPoint presentation. Jason, would you begin the work session with a brief summation?
I can, Madam Mayor. Again, this is the work session for the 24 budget. I'm going to just have her scroll down a little bit. As you look here, on our 5-year property tax levy, there's been a steady increase in values. The net digest for this year is going up about $10 million. $87,428,495. One bill is approximately $87,429. Looking at revenues, we are proposing a true rollback that we take the millage rate from 12.9914 to 11.5742. That's pretty much a neutral or $5 decrease. So there'll be no tax increase for next year. We would essentially take the same amount, $1,011,920. Again, through just very frugal spending, watching dollars, and there's some other things I'm going to talk about that's kind of helping with that. But obviously we know that property taxes make up about 68% of our revenue. That has gone down, which is a good thing. We've been able to diversify. We've gone from about 80% plus down to below 70. But other funding sources, as you look at the white line, and real quick, just so you know, 22, this is last 22's year end. This is how we finished out 22. This is, the yellow is the 23 budget that was approved. The orange is the budget versus actual. That's real time, how much we've spent, versus what was approved for 23. Of course, the white is the proposed, but there's a lot of diversification of funding. A lot of this is grants, LMIG grants, EEE grants. We know that we should see revenue on the licensing of short-term rental. Just go a little bit more, Sharon, please. And then we did receive some funding for fines and fees. And then, of course, the interest revenues have been very strong. And then on the hotel motel, with it going to 8%, we're anticipating about $60,000 in unrestricted, meaning that goes into the general fund that can be used as needed. And then we're looking at about 30,000, what we call restricted or capital brick and mortar projects. So the proposed budget is $1,499,999. Again, $1,011,000 of that would be general fund, and the other funding sources diversified. And it's quickly go through legislative, pretty much the same. Executive, legislative, of course, is the council. Executive's the mayor. We are budgeting a little bit more for elections. Last year we had to do an election. We found out that we didn't budget enough. We're budgeting about $7,000. Administrative, pretty straightforward. We are proposing a 5% COLA for all employees. So a lot of what you see as salary is at 5%. Everything else, there are some fees, professional fees, as far as auditor, city attorney, and then there's some fees associated with Granicus They've all been built in, and also we budgeted a extra money. We know that in 2024, we have to do the comp plan update. And so there's some other studies we may want to look at. I put $20,000 in for things like maybe if we need to update our zoning regs or anything like that. So, that's where you see those kind of things. We just kind of took them on real quick. If I go too fast, stop me. On buildings and grounds, everything's about the same. The 45,000 that you see in red, that is the third pickleball court. I'm gonna talk about that towards the end. So that would be a capital request right there. The good thing is about 30,000 of that 45,000 should be the hotel motel that we're seeing on brick and mortar. So that's a good thing. People are seeing that we have to earmark some of that money. So a good chunk of that pickleball court should be paid for, but we anticipate to be 30,000 brick and mortar. So keep going down, judicial, that's our judge, police, which is typically our largest funding source. Everything's about the same. If you go down a little bit more on training, I know there's been some mandated training, as you can see. We only budgeted a little $400. We've actually increased that to 4,000. We do know there's some training that they need to do. I know policing is important, so we want to make sure that's there. The 13,500 that you see here, that would be what we would consider a 4-year capital lease to purchase another vehicle. Police vehicle, as you know, we have this rotation policy now every 5 years, 75,000 miles. We've got several vehicles that are in that 5-year time period. That money's parked there for that. We keep on going.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it's important to note, correct me if I'm wrong, when you look at the approved budget from 2023, we did not put capital expenditures in this format, right?
No.
So when you see compare 23 total budget to 24 proposed budget, a lot of the difference, the increase is driven by the fact that we plugged in capital here.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
It's still in a 5-year capital plan, like always. So this is an update that was shown to us from our auditor, right?
Well, it is, and certainly for disclosure and transparency, we want to make sure that people can clearly see what's being bought and what's being paid for. That's correct.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that, because like most of us, we go right to the bottom line, or why is this increasing here for the whole department? And that's a driver on most of this.
It is correct.
We have a capital budget, but the capital budget itself is being integrated in with all the departments.
Correct, yes.
Just like
Correct.
we do for salaries.
Correct, yes, sir. Yes, sir. On the roads, one of the, and I want to kind of talk a little bit about the T-Splosh. That has been really a great thing for Sky Valley. As you all know, there's been some big ticket items, needed big ticket items. And we've actually, anything that we bought, we've actually put stickers that identify funded by T-Splosh. We want people to know how important that is. And one of the reasons that we've been able to reduce the millage rate is because of T-Splosh. Because if you look at the roads budget, particularly, just go down to the bottom line, a lot of those costs that would typically be in the general fund, which is your taxpayer funded accounts, we were able to drop the from 336,000 to 244,000. So, equivalent of about 1 mil, we were able to take out of that road budget because a lot of those costs can now be paid for out of T-Splosh. So that's another thing that's been so important. That's allowed us to reduce the millage rate down, is because, again, a lot of the road paving, the materials, the culvert piping, the asphalt, all that stuff, equipment, that can now be bought out of T-Splosh versus having to plug it into the general fund. So that's another great thing about that. So as you look at the road department, you can say, oh, well, we've cut their budget $90,000. No, that money is now sitting in T-Splosh. We'll get to that in a minute. But special events, as you notice, an increase here, almost $11,000. we just finished our 3-year agreement with our pyro company. They do a great job for us, but he did tell me, that if we go back, they're probably gonna be about a 25% increase in cost, which is, so that accounts for that. Our Independence Day, our Fall Fest, it just gets bigger and bigger every year, so we're trying to make sure we fully fund that, so you do see an increase from 24,000 to 31,000. That is going towards, again, all of these great things that we all love, so, that's where that funds that. We go down to the housing development. If you look around, you'll see that we've got a lot of construction going on right now. Jim Podron is now working 32 hours a week, and he could probably work 52 hours a week. But we pretty much have gone from 16 hours a week to 32 hours, just with the amount of duty and activity, construction. I mean, we've got many houses under construction. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. So a lot of that is, so you see an increase there, basically from 23,000 to 64,000. That is just driven by the volume of new construction that's going on. So, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that a lot of the houses that you're seeing built are houses that, when they get on the tax rolls, it's going to be very beneficial to the city. Then economic development, this is primarily the visitor center. We didn't really fund, when we did the budget for last year, as you all know, we were redoing this building. And there was some visitor center stuff that we funded that was really not budgeted for, but we went ahead for this year. So a lot, as you look at this, the $8,000 that you see here, of course, we make money off that stuff. If we're budgeting $8,000 to buy T-shirts and coffee mugs and things like that, we probably make 9 or 10 on that by the time the dust clears. A lot of that stuff, we make $1 here, $1 there. So this is visitor center type things, all the little neat stuff that we're selling that kind of helps market the city. And then scroll down a little more. Of course, the bottom line, revenue, $1,499,999. Expenditures, $1,441,499, and then capital, $58,500. And so it'll be a balanced budget of $1,499,999. So that is the general fund. The proposed revenues are aligned with the anticipated expenditures. And so I will stop there unless y'all have any questions.
Back to the revenues, we have insurance premium taxes, 35,000. What is that?
That is basically, we get that once a year. It normally comes in around October, so we're anticipating it. It's basically, it's a tax on, Karen, I hate to put you on the spot. It's a tax for insurance. I mean, it's a collect all of the insurance the policies that are sold. It's the tax.
There's a certain percentage that
Yeah,
they
a
have
certain
to pay
percentage that we get
into the city.
for
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a commission.
Yeah,
So
it
this
exactly.
comes back to the city.
And it's been, is a lot of it's tied towards development and homes and added value. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing more is because of the values of properties that you're insured, that are being insured. So,
Okay.
that typically get, like I said, we only get that around October, and we should be getting that any day now, because it comes, we get it once a year.
All right, and then in admin, expenses, there's other purchase services for 20,000.
That would be the, let's see, if we can go back.
Did you say photo services?
Other purchase.
Other purchases, thank you.
Isn't that Granicus?
Yeah, that's the hotel, the 20,000, that is granted, because that's the hotel, motel, monitors, that's what that is, other purchases. The 45,000 is part of that is, 20,000 of that would be for the, if we, to coincide with the comp plan update, if we had our zoning regulations refreshed, part of that's that, part of that's city attorney, part of that's audit. Technical services, that's typically Black Mountain Software and some other things that we have some extra module that we pay for. And then the 20,000 is the Granicus, that is all of the menu of items that we will be using for this.
So fundamentally on this general fund, because of T-Splosh, the property value increase, the hotel motel increase, the collection there really allows us to reduce the millage rate 1.4 plus points and still sustain our operation.
Correct, yes, sir. That's correct. Any other questions about the general fund before we go to the combined utility fund?
Any comments or questions from the council?
Yeah, two comments. First comment, and I'm embarrassed to talk about a lousy $2,000, but the marketing budget is projected next year to be, the city portion to be $3,000.
I was just gonna get to that, but that's a good question.
That's, yeah, we'll get to that. I think we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Okay.
Part of the agenda.
Yeah, I had a general, under this presentation, council, I have a general fund, combined utility, then marketing fund, and T-Splosh fund. I was gonna do that, yes, sir.
Okay, and then, second point has to do with the budget for the building inspection service. And again, yeah, I think that's very important. I think this next year, we may be needing to put more safeguards in place. I don't think we have a sufficiently formal process of approving site plans, such as to contain overdevelopment of sites, of letting the contractor know where the building footprint's gonna be, where the sewer fields are gonna be, where the driveway is gonna be. And so instead, what we're seeing is that people are just cutting the whole thing down. And I think that's because we just have it so informal. We have a discussion with the owner, which may or may not ever get transmitted to the contractors. Contractors want to please the owner. And we've got ordinances in place about how much you can clear, put a house, and how much around the house, and so on. And yet, what I'm seeing now is that there's a lot more cutting going on than anyone would expect. And I think the way to resolve that would be to enact an ordinance change requiring formal to-scale land use plan proposal that would be the basis for actually staking out boundaries on the site so that the bulldozer guy knows where he can cut up to and where not to. Because when we lose our canopy, I mean, you know, you can't have an inspector out there long enough to catch all this stuff before it happens. And once it happens, you know, you can't put this genie back in the bottle.
How
So,
about, Jim,
I think we're gonna-
that might be a good suggestion, and we can bring that up with the city manager and planning and zoning commission.
Okay.
And see if they can design something.
And some of that has been anticipated, Councilman, not all of that, but obviously, when I talk about the $20,000 that we put in for updates, GMRC, Georgia Mountain Regional Commission, who has historically done our comp plan update every 5 years. I had a conversation with Adam Hazel, who's their planning director, about 3 weeks ago, a month ago. He and I were hoping to meet this month beforehand, but we've had some schedule conflicts, but as we're looking at maybe refreshing some of our regulations, land use, some of that money that we park there, possibly what you're talking about could be reviewed during that as well, so.
But I think we need Jim Piper's.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, and Jim, he's not here, I'm sure he's out doing the inspections. But, he pretty much hits the ground running now, but yeah, he's very proactive about these type of things, and I'm sure he'd be
But,
very
you
receptive.
know, and simply said, the permitting process for new construction ought to include plan review. Before the permit's issued, and that kind of helps solve most of it.
And right now, the plan review can be on like, brown paper with a hand drawn in pencil. And I think that ought to be
For
more
new
formal.
construction, needs to be a formal plan.
Yeah. I mean, we see everybody in Raven County is getting caught by this building in boom.
I know that planning and zoning is also going to start reviewing our building regs and bringing them up to date also, so this could be a project for them, as well as Jim Piper, citizen and council input. Thank you, Jim. Was that takes care of your question? Okay. Any other questions from the council on our general fund budget and millage rate? Is there anybody online with questions?
No questions.
Okay, let's go to the next portion.
Madam Mayor,
Anything
Council,
else?
the next budget I want to talk about is our combined utility, which is our water and trash. We are anticipating that budget to grow next year on the revenue side because of obviously new construction, new people are coming in, more water usage, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it?
We're anticipating about $455,000 in usage charges, 12,000 in tap-on fees. That would be the equivalent of about 4 new homes. Late fees, interest, and then the 24,000 that you see here, that is the home serve. The way that's the server line. The way that works is that we receive that money, that $2.50 when it's added to your water bill. We receive that money's parked there, and then we use that money to pay server line. So that's, and I'll talk about that in a minute. 36,000 is interest revenues, with one of the unintended consequences that's benefited us is higher interest rates. Borrow money is higher interest rates on the assets that we have. So anyway, $532,000, just real quickly. What you see here is the 5% COLA representation increase. If you'll scroll down, Sharon, the 23,000 that you see there, other purchase services, that would be where we pay Circline out of that 24,000. Electricity, supplies and materials, that just continues to go up. And then under capital here, the 40,000 that you see, Rick Barron, who is the engineer, our water engineer, and I've got our water coordinator here that can talk about this as well. We have found that because of the growth that we're seeing, we're at a point now where we're probably going to need to start looking to build a new well, have another well. Well, that's about an 18 to 24 month process. And so right now we have an RFP out, request for proposals. And the deadline to receive those, I believe, is this Friday, the 13th. But essentially what we've done is we have requested hydrogeologists to provide us a quote to identify a suitable well location. That's a pretty extensive study. It's much more than, say, you're putting a well at your property. We're talking about a well that might generate 100,000 plus gallons a day. So that's where that money is. We parked for that. The $9,100 that you see here, that would be for a split capital lease program to buy a new either F-350 or F-550. And we'll talk about that towards the end. Part of that would be paid for out of water. Part of that would be paid for out of trash, because it would be used in a recyclable truck 1 day a week, for trash. Also, we would have a dump bed that could be used to carry pipe, it could be used to carry culvert piping, water piping, it could be used to, we could even put the leak back system on the back of it. And it would be to replace the 550, I think, which is, and it would actually, we would be replacing the 550 and the other 350. That's, they're both 20-something years old and just wore slap out, as we say in Alabama, just wore slap out. And then, the $15,000, as you see, that's debt service on the two GFA loans that we have every year. And then, as you all may remember from a previous meeting with the city attorney, we are required to break even, and so we are proposing that we will do so. We're anticipating, again, $532,000 in revenue and just a little less than $530,000 in expenses. So we can see about $2,500. So again, we're breaking even, we're not losing money. And then on the trash side, pretty much the same thing. Everything was be about the same, a little bit of increase as far as the COLAs. Then if you'll scroll down a little more, Sharon, on the long line here is the 9100, that would be the split with the capital lease on this vehicle. And it's pretty much a wash. We would be basically breaking even. So again, that is our capital. I mean, excuse me, that's our combined utility for water and trash. We are again, part of some of that is the study that we know we're going to do next year to try to identify a new well. Because there will come a time that we will run out of water taps. So I mean, it's for new home construction and we don't want to be put in that situation. So, the city, not to beat this to death, but the city is growing, as we all know, you see what we're worried about. So, we're trying to plan ahead, so that's what we're doing. Any questions about the combined utility? All right, now we'll talk about the marketing there, budget here, and, actually, and I got this from Gordon Brand, who's the chair of the marketing committee. A lot of times when you forecast this, you're having to make presumptions because we don't, a lot of times the POA and the club, we don't really know, they have their own boards and they have to make their own financial decisions on what they contribute. So you almost have to just make a best guess on what they may do. But anyway, we had talked about reducing the city's contribution from 5,000 to 3,000. One of the reasons that we're looking to do this is because we know that a lot of what Sharon does, probably about 20% of her activities are devoted towards marketing. Of course, you have to kind of factor in some of that salary of course, that's being funded out of the general fund, but you have to kind of take that into consideration as a contribution as well. So I know from a dollar standpoint, it's gone down, but for the activity, the Visit Sky Valley website that she maintains, the Visit Sky Valley Facebook page, all of the postings that she does, so that's taken into consideration. If you'll scroll down, Gordon Brand sent me this yesterday, and I actually came up here for a couple hours yesterday, and I tried to decipher his numbers, but apparently, what was proposed by the marketing committee, the Golf Life, that's Hollingsworth, I presume there's going to be an increase. Normally that's 9,000, it's now 9,720. Anyway, this is broken down in categories. You got the golf magazine, the marketing golf, and you have the various magazines, Mountain Lakes, the hit list, Mount Travel, Clayton Union, professional services, if they needed to contract somebody out, $500. Then there's certain things like, they've done some goodie bags, hay bale trail, the paint material, things like that. General supplies, and if you scroll down under other parts, there's a big golf tournament that the past couple of years, the marketing committees contributed to. Actually, there's 2 golf tournaments. They give, $750 to one and $500 to another. The other $1,350, house, cleaning services, meal allowances. If you have golf dignitaries or somebody that comes in that's maybe doing an article about hiking or whatever, golfer, it may be, there's money set aside that they could help with that. Gifts, apparel, that would be things if they wanted to maybe, buy some t-shirts or contribute to some t-shirts. I know in the past, there's been some contributions to like Fall Fest and things like that, and then a contingency $1,000. Their proposed budget, well, let me back up, for this year, the budget was $19,000. They're asking $19,209, and based on this, what I had, and again, you haven't to make presumptions of what the other entities may provide, but I was thinking to find something that's balanced was recommended to be 16,500. If we were to take about 3,300 in carryover right now, on what was budgeted for this year, and if they don't spend, we're anticipating over $3,000 left over. There's about $3,000 more in the checking account than what was budgeted. And then if the city gave 3,400, the POA gave 3,400, and the club gave 3,400, that's $16,500. So again, if it was felt that that needed to be more closer to 5,000, we would just have to do some adjustments there. But this is what we were looking at doing for the marketing. It would be approximately $3,400 direct payment. Or that is set aside from the general fund to fund marketing. So, any conversation or discussions, again, if it is of the feeling to increase that, this would be the time that we want to do that.
Well, I would just say that this is the most important thing that the city does that it has not traditionally done in the past. And it's always been a partnership that has been led by the city. And I understand that Gordon has gone back to the POA and to the club to see if they could contribute the $5,000 again, which would allow us to continue to do the advertising that we think is important to give some balance. I mean, Doug Hollingsworth is great. He gets a lot of exposure for us. But again, it's primarily to a golfing audience, that's a fine demographic, but we do a lot of other things and we'd like to target other markets as well, including the general tourists. And if the city doesn't contribute the $5,000, it's hard to get the multiplier from the POA and the club. So if the city's going to take the leadership, and the city has to take the leadership because we're the ones who have the revenue sources, we have the ability to tax, which nobody else can do. And that's why I'm happy that the city has Sharon, and that we're working the websites and some of those and the social media side. But I think it's really important that we find another, well, I guess now another $1,600 so we can take it up to that 5,000 so we can do what we've been doing in the past. Because right now, with interest rates going up and beginning to put the dampers on the housing market and activity there, this is not a time, I think, to be cutting back on marketing. And I see where we budgeted for a couple of surpluses for various departments. I look at the September financial status report, and one of our largest departments is under where we should have been at 74% in September, and they were at like 68. So that's 6% difference. And that part of the budget comes to $27,000. So I'm thinking that we shouldn't have that much of a difficulty coming up with another $1,600 for the marketing committee.
Well, the marketing budget does not have to be adopted with this budget, because as you know, they will have to come back, and usually they do that like January, and just like this, it's a formal process, it's advertised. And hopefully by then, we will have an idea of what the POA is looking to contribute to the club. And then that can be visited then. This is just more of a guideline or forecast, but again, the marketing budget is something that y'all always approve separately, so there'll be opportunities to visit that. This is just showing kind of a snapshot of what we're thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, that budget, typically y'all will approve that in a very similar process as this, where it's advertised, public can provide input. Typically that's January, so hopefully by then we'll know what they're thinking, and when Gordon comes and presents his budget in the council meeting, that can be revisited. This is just more just kind of let you know what we're thinking based on what we're anticipating the club and the POA, et cetera, to donate. So, yeah, this is just more.
Okay, so we don't have to make any motions to exempt this budget from our current.
No, by law, we're required to adopt the general fund. Of course, we need to adopt our combined utility, but there's nothing that, that is typically adopted separately, by the council. That typically that we don't have done that in the past in January.
Yeah, and the reason we've got a big carryover every year is because we have business to conduct in January and February before these budgets typically get approved. Okay, and again, I apologize for taking our time on $1,600 or $2,000, but there's a lot of volunteer labor that goes into this, and there's a lot of thought, and we need broad-based participation of the folks from the club and the POA to keep this going and keep it on an even track.
All right, well, any other questions about marketing? I was gonna go to these spots.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions online? Sharon?
The T-Splosh budget again, this is, again, I don't wanna sound trite, but I can't beat this enough. This has really been a game changer for the city, as far as allowing us to do some much needed infrastructure improvements. We're, based on what we receive monthly, we're anticipating, for fiscal year 24, about $600,000, in the T-Splosh. We're about year 2 into that now. The interest revenue is probably around $10,000, so $610,000 is what we're anticipating. Of that, $475,000, we're calling that prioritized paving. We do know there's some roads, for example, Ridgepole, which is one of the main roads. We're trying to, we know that's gonna be a substantial cost. I suspect, we know that the plant will be closing down in a couple of months as we get to the colder weather, but as we get into next year, just as I mentioned, we will have an RFPs out for the wells. Because of what we know that's gonna cost, we will put that out to bid to get solicitations from contractors to pave that road as well as some other roads. Jerry's here now. We've had some conversations about some, again, we call prioritized paving. But we do know that that's probably gonna be one of the roads, and probably a substantial amount of that will probably go to that, but that road definitely needs attention. It's one of our biggest roads, I think 3.5, 4 miles long. A lot of our developments in that area, but there's other roads as well that we're looking at, again, but that's just an example. 75,000, that would go into things like, culvert piping, asphalt, things that we do. As you all know, last year we bought a roller paver. We found that it can be more efficient for the guys to do pothole repairs with that versus bringing the company some cost savings there, but that's where that money kind of comes in, culvert pipes. We have a lot of culvert pipes that need to be replaced. And then the $60,000, that's a capital outlay for a hydrovac. I'm gonna talk about that here in just a moment. Let you know what that is. There's some efficiency with that. There's also some safety with that. I'm gonna get to that in a minute, but, does anybody have any questions about the T-Splosh? Again, this is, if anybody might be listening that doesn't understand, this is transportation. It's a special tax set aside for road transportation, funding. And, again, a lot of the, that burden that we would typically put into the general fund of the roads, we're able to now set that towards the T-Splosh to offset, so that's why it's been one of the reasons we've been able to drop the millage.
To be clear, it's a county initiative,
Yes, exactly.
sales tax.
Yes, exactly, yeah, and this is something that was, if anybody, it was all the cities participated in it, it's not just Scott Valley PMA, it's been great. Now, I'm gonna talk about some of the funding requests, I'm just gonna flip that, I'm not sharing, okay. Scaly Mountain, volunteer fire and rescue, historically, they have asked for 1.5 mils of tax digest. As I mentioned, one meal is 87,429. If you look at the general fund under fire, $131,144. That is typically paid quarterly, so you just divide that by 4. They invoice us that quarterly. So one of the benefits of increased the net digest, it benefits the fire. Of course, they play an important role, so it's important for that. But that's just simple math there. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer, but that's kind of what historically the council's done year after year, 1.5 meals. We'll scroll down one more, Sharon.
What was the times 1.5?
87, the 1 meal, 87,000, 1 meal is 87, a meal is 87,400 some dollars. And so they asked for 1.5 meals, so you just take that multiply 87 times 1.5. As we talked a bit about the pickleball court, as you know, that's an ever-growing sport. We put that out to bid, and we received what I would consider 2 qualifying expenditure quotes. You'll scroll down, 41,980 out the door. That's what actually build. And what that would do is they would remove the fence that's along the side of where the bathrooms are at, set that aside. They will come in and build a 3rd court. They will it will be seamless and put the nets up, and then they will extend on the sides, matching chain link 10-foot fence, and then they would set the poles back. So when it's done, it should look just like the other 2. You would just have a court side by side by side. But this will be the 3rd court. I'm sure many of y'all have heard there's been a request for that.
Oh, yeah.
And so, in fact, if you've been up there lately, if you've seen the stakes in the ground, that is where we staked off the corners to get these quotes. So anyway, I've talked with Mr. Beck, I've talked with his references, everything, they're there. And he told us that if we can commit to this, the important thing about this is that we can lock this price in because they're about 6 months out. So it's important. In fact, you will see this on the council next week to go ahead and approve this. We need to get this locked in so they can start, because we wait till January when the budget, we won't have it built next year. So we need to get this locked in now because they're about 6 months out. So they can start around April and hopefully have it done by June. So when the Biden players are. So anyway, that is your capital. We put 45,000 in the budget, a little bit of contingency there, but he feels like that should be the price there. The next one, Sheriff Scruggs, is the other quote, a little more, wasn't as much detail, but again, within that 45,000, my recommendation is going to be that we go with the first one. Again, I talked to several of their references, outstanding references. So that is for the pickleball. We'll scroll down to the next one. Talk a little bit about the 60,000 that I talked about in T-Splosh. That's for the hydrovac. And kind of we got some video and some photos so you can see what this is, but kind of give you an idea. It does add efficiency. It does add safety. We had a water leak in a ridge pole a couple months or so ago, and one of our guys, as they were digging out the dirt, even though 811 comes in March, we nicked a power line and the person got shot. Thankfully, they didn't get killed, but this kind of helped with that. But do you have the ability to pull that up, Sharon?
With the picture of it?
Well, the picture and the little video as well. But
Was that you, Cody? You got a little jolt.
Oh, dear.
So anyway, it uses high pressure water and it kind of creates the slurry mud. It's, again, it's what is high, but it helps, instead of having to dig around that pipe, and they can actually loosen up the dirt and then suck or draw back that dirt out. So it makes for a cleaner hole, it makes for a safer hole, it makes for a quicker job site, a neater job site. Anyway, there's a photo of what it looks like. It's a self-contained unit. It has a water tank that you run pressure water in. Then it has that's what it would be like. We would take that on site. A lot of cities have this. The city of Dahlonega has this. City of Commerce. The guys actually went down to Commerce. The City of Commerce Public Works Department was gracious enough to let Jerry go down last week and look at it in action. But I think this would be it can be used for water, but also it can be used for roads and culverts and things like that. Even cleaning up dirt around potholes, and so it's got multiple uses it can be used for. But
Does it come with the trailer?
it would be, yes, it'd be everything that you see there. And it would be right at $60,000 again, but it's again, it's, from a safety standpoint, if we could work more efficient, work quicker, work safer, we certainly don't want to have any other incidences where,
It seems like it would have a productivity factor as well.
yes,
Yeah.
I think Cody got a picture of it as well. At one point, they called me over there and I was looking and there was power lines just all entangled. And where that wand spins this way instead of just a straight, it went around every one of those electrical lines and never faced them. It just went all around it where you could get around them.
Well, we certainly don't want one of our employees running into those electric lines either.
Yeah.
Again.
so, this,
So if we're digging a hole to get at a thing and it's full of water,
Yeah.
this will take the water out.
Right.
it has.
More or less, just a massive shot back with a pressure washer.
Yeah.
And that's gonna keep us from hitting them. We'll be able to pothole in power line, pothole windstream, stuff like that, that's costing the city tons of money when we,
Yeah.
But
where do you put the slurry?
it goes in the,
Frac tanks.
it goes in that big yellow.
to it after that?
Oh, we will take it up and dump it and let it dry out, and then we could either reuse it, the dirt for places we fill in, or.
It breaks it down into,
sure. No, let's do it.
it breaks it down, Mr. Tony, into like a real fine,
Okay.
you can seal.
Oh, you sent it to me, email?
So again, from productivity, from a safety standpoint, for a neater job site, I mean, if we can, if you hit something, there's cost, inconvenience with that. It just there's just several win-win things with this, and so,
This is a hole that they dug, and they never brought out a shovel, nothing. And you see all those wires in the middle of that,
Yeah.
instead of using a shovel, they found them with that wand, and it was something else.
and there's, there may come a time where we might could use that versus having a grand excavator and a road saw and cut the road or something like that. So anyway, we're not going to sell it, but there's a lot of benefits to that. Any other questions about that?
It's needless to say, even the safety factor is
Yes.
the major
Yes.
selling point for me also.
And then we spread out a little more, under the capital, this was from GMA, they do a capital lease program. A little more, some of the rates, just a little bit more, or scroll down a little more sharing. Basically, we're looking at doing a 4-year capital lease. We actually own it in the program for another police vehicle, and then, so if you scroll a little more, One of the things we're looking at is buying, we have a F-550 that's really, it's rusted out, it's in bad shape. And we have another F-350, that's our recycle truck that actually caught fire years ago. We still use it, but the plan would be to surplus both of those units. We would buy a F-350. Now, the one we just bought is a flatbed, fixed bed, we're towing the trailer to haul the equipment. What this one would have a dump bed where you could, we could use it to carry water pipe. We could use it for recycling. It would be split cost between trash and water, because we would be doing recycling one day, we would do the recycle truck. And then the rest of the time, it could be carrying water pipe, it could be used to carry asphalt, it could be used to carry rock, it could be used to carry, we could put the leaf back on the back of it. We could use it to also put the brine tank on the back if they're having to treat the roads for inclement weather. So there's a lot of uses. Again, this is where we're trying to be strategic on replacing. A lot of the trucks we have, they're 10, 12, 15 years old, and so this would be to replace actually 2 vehicles that we have that are,
Including the recycle.
the recycle truck, what was that, 2001 model? 01, and then the 550s were 08, 07, 08, I think. Yeah, so yeah, both these vehicles that we're talking about they've exhausted all of useful lifespan.
We spent quite a bit of money on that 550 in the last couple of years.
So anyway, from that standpoint as well, but anyway, and then of course, the other part would be, the goal is over the next probably 3 to 5 years. This is the new vehicle that we just bought. We were fortunate that we were able to use some leftover SPOS and some other funds and the surplus funds from the 2 Subarus. This vehicle is identical to the other that you might see Officer Clark drive. Officer Todd, our new officer, will get this. It is actually, this is the one that's still been striped. We should have it back by the end of the week, it's being the lights and the cage and all that's being put in. We should have that hopefully by this Friday, but, again, this is ultimately what we're trying to get to. All of our units being Explorers, that's pretty much what all the cities and counties are going with now. Now, again, we're going with the non-turbo versions, they're about $5,000-6,000 cheaper, but I just want to stress that. But, anyway, this was if we were to do that capital lease, the plan would be to try to go with something like that.
Now, is this Dodge's car?
That one's actually, Officer Todd's. Yeah, this is the new one, as you see, it still has the drive-out tag, but it is identical to the one that Officer Gotti drives. And we should have that, like I said, we should have that here hopefully by the end of this week. In fact, I mentioned to Sharon the other day, what I'd like to do is once we get those back, I would like to maybe get a little photo opportunity with Officer Todd and Officer Gotti standing side by side, so folks can see these nice new vehicles that they're driving, so I think that's good. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions?
I want to thank you. Jason has started a program where he is putting, this vehicle or some, a sticker that says it's being paid for by T-Splosh. So people can know that T-Splosh is good. So when we reapply to do this again, it will kind of bring to mind what this is all about. So I thought that was a great idea. Thank you, Jason.
And I would point out that there are people sitting at this table who lobby intensively for this, and I'm looking at the mayor.
Yes, I did. I was ready to sell my soul for it, but I didn't quite do that. Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments about the enterprise fund, the marketing fund, and the T-Splosh budget? Anybody online?
No questions.
Okay, thank you, Jason, for
Thank
the
you, Mayor.
presentation. All right, wait a
Madam
minute.
Mayor,
Yes, that's Jim.
can I say something to Jason?
Yes.
Because I want to commend him for not only the presentation, but I've been watching budgets made for a long time. And we used to squirrel away money in places where it was hidden. It looked good, but it was just stashing stuff away. And I don't see that happening anymore. I think we've got a straightforward, transparent budget. And not only that, but I think this budget benefits from Jason looking ahead to the things that are gonna happen next year and the year after that, and planning and thinking about that, and that these concerns are reflected in this year's budget more than we have in years past. So, thank you.
I agree.
And the other comment I'll make is, due to his management of these budgets and the expenses and the work that you all do, the efficiency that happens, that between all of that efficiency in operating the city, the T-Splosh, the property value increases, et cetera, that I mentioned before. The last 3 years, we've been able to lower the millage rate by 4 points. Still maintain all the city services that are going on, and get the equipment that the city needs to continue to keep this a beautiful place. So I think it's just been a great job all around.
And it's certainly a team effort. I mean, we've got some great guys, I tell them all the time, keep the foot on the gas, it's not gonna slow down. Anyway, thank you there for the kind words, but I've got a great team.
All right.
It's a lean budget. There's no fat in this budget. It's almost a shoestring budget, but I'm glad that we as a community can afford to provide the kind of equipment that the guys need to do their jobs safely and efficiently.
And the other comment is, we know, from my internal audit over the last few years, we have very, very little debt, which is unusual for a municipality. Very.
And she did mention that in our audit. Yes. And I commend the city and all the committees that are working together and the employees for our paradigm shifting of thinking about what we're gonna need in the future, not just, thinking about the next few months. Yeah. So I agree. With that, I will need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. Second.
I quit.
Oh, you quit. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the meeting is adjourned, and we will have our next